Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, Menachos Samach Tes. We begin on the second line. Boi Rami Baruch. I have a question, says Rami Baruch, regarding the Shtei Lechem that permit us to stop bringing karbanos, offerings, even bikurim, the first fruits which are brought to the Beis Hamikdash from the new season, from the new crop. So first comes Shtei Lechem on Shavuos, and that opens the door, clicks on the green light to allow further offerings of the new crop. Shtei Lechem, hanotza sharya, echanotza sharya. So we're speaking about fruit, which grow on a fruit tree. They go through two steps in their final development. We have the hanotza, which is the blossoming. We have chanotza, when you start discerning the mini fruit there, right? And then it develops into a proper fruit. How developed must this new fruit, let's say a grape, how far in its growth, how much growth must it achieve in order for it to be covered by the Shtei Lechem, which would allow it to be brought eventually in the Beis Hamikdash? So if it's not yet grown anything, when the Shtei Lechem is being offered, of course, it will not benefit from the Shtei Lechem. It will not be covered by the Shtei Lechem of this year. And when eventually it grows, it can't be used as a carbon, it can't be brought because it wasn't yet permitted. But if it's somewhat, into its development, hanatza, chanata, and at that point, Shavuos comes around and we have Shtei Lechem. Down the road, can you bring this fruit this year or not? Hanotza sharya or chanotza sharya? Is it the blossoming stage which achieves this coverage, or chanata, which is further, into the process? Well, my hanotza, my chanata. Which hanotza or chanata are you referring to? Ilim hanotza, the pera of the fruit that we're talking about, or v'chanata means of the fruit, the pera. Why go that far? Hashta hashrasha sharya. We learned yesterday that even taking root prior to the Omer already connects you to the Omer. You consider it somewhat developed and you can be covered by the Omer's heter. Hanatza v'chanata, but of course hanatza which are further down the road, of course. So as we learned in the Mishnah, in terms of grain, just merely taking root before the Omer and or before Shtei Lechem will give it that connection and will give it that heter accomplished by the Omer and Shtei Lechem. You don't need it to have a form of any fruit or any grain. Just the rooting in the ground is enough to connect it to this year's process. It goes without saying if the fruit is actually visible, or right? Of course. Ella, rather, hanotza de ola, was speaking about the leaf which precedes the fruit, which began to sprout. The chanata de ola, or it's further in its development. Again, the leaf itself. Is that ample? Mihava ki hashrasha, is that considered parallel to the taking root of a wheat kernel? And it now connects to this year's season and gets the coverage of the Shtei Lechem? Oy, perhaps no, you can't really relate the two processes. It's too early in the game. By grain, we say rooting is enough, but over here, a leaf is not really substantial. Take it, we leave it unresolved. Boy, Rav Bar Rav Chanan, I have another question. Chitin shazoran bekarka. He took some wheat kernels, stuck it into the ground, planted into the ground. And now a day later we have the Omer being brought. And he decides to go back and pick out those grain from the ground. Is it mutter to eat? Does it connect to the Omer while it's in the ground or not? So let's see. Omer matiran, ein Omer matiran. Does it have the heter of the Omer or not? Hey Chidami, how exactly is this happening? Either ashrush. So the Gemara is assuming that he's not going back and taking it out. It's a question of further growth. So he planted wheat and it took root and it grew, and the question is, does it have the heter of this year's Omer? So really it depends when it took root, right? We discussed this yesterday. Either asher tanina, either la asher tanina. If it took root, certainly it gets the benefit of this year's Eimer. And we have that in the Mishnah. Likewise, if it did not take root, then it doesn't relate to this year's Idli Ashrish. We also have a Mishnah Tanina that it's not mutter until next year. That's not, we have a Mishnah. If it took root before the Eimer, then it relates to this year's crop, this year's season. It's covered by the Eimer, Erme Matir, and you can eat it after the Eimer is brought Vimla, but otherwise it relates to next year's cycle. Asurin, it's off limits, Ad Sheyava Eimer Haba, until next year's Eimer. So what's the question? Let's read, I must be speaking the Chatzdinu. What happened was that he harvested, he cut off the grain before the Eimer was brought. V'zar'inu kadim l'Eimer. And he planted it before Pesach, before the Eimer. V'asur Eimer b'chalaf halayu. The Eimer passed it by, which means to say, we're now after the Eimer, which was brought when the wheat was still stuck in the ground. But it didn't take root as of yet. It's still lying in the ground. And the question is, the question posed was, can I go pick them out of the ground and eat them? So what's the question? What are the factors at play? Shall we say, well, it's like just plain grain, which of course, once the Eimer is offered, the grain is mutter. Or shall we say, no, grain in a container, yeah. It's considered food item, but it's in the ground. It's been treated like seeds. It's been planted. It's bottle. It becomes part and parcel of the landscape. It's not treated like grain any longer, so it can't really benefit from the Eimer's offering, and it's not mutter. Okay, command the shadya bekada is as though it's been placed in a pitcher, a container, damya, right? Compared to that, Sharinu Eimer, and therefore the Eimer will be materit. You can pick it out and eat it. Or you can say batal lul gabe ara. It's batal to the ground, and it is considered like a non-food entity, and it can not really become mutter by the Eimer. So is it like wheat or like part of the ground? And this has several other additional applications as well. How do we define this material in the ground? Is it food stuff or is it land? So we know that there's something called a no. If a fellow gets overcharged, undercharged, if it's a substantial, inflation, then he has a right to demand a refund, in some cases to nullify the sale. But the din no only applies to metaltal, to movable items. It doesn't apply to karka. So back to this question, what's the status of this wheat in the ground? Is it like wheat? And the rules of I know would apply, or is it like karka and it would be exempt from I know? Yesh lein I know, I know. Now, how does this play out? Give me an example of an unfair, transaction regarding this kernel arrangement. Are we speaking that Reuven hired Shimon to plant him up, plant up the farm with 6 sacks of grain, of seeds. And turns out he only did 5. Also Sadi, 2 of them come along and testify. We know he only planted 5 sacks, 5 kurv, whatever. Well, in that case, of course, he has a right to demand refund, because that's not a no. That's a fellow misleading him. He's denying him what's rightfully his. I hired you for 6, you gave me 5. That's not a no. No, it means it was an evaluation, an overcharge in price or whatever, right? Something which is pliable, which is a fluctuate. Here it's an absolute, definite, specific amount that he shortchanged him on. So whether you consider this karka or metalman, he's full right for refund. Rabba tells us anything which has a definite size, or mishkal, weight, or minion, or it's counted, then even if it's a small discrepancy, he has a right to undo it. So it's not in line with huchay say no. You rip me off. So whether it's karka or not, have a right to refund. So there's no question that in this case you would have a right to claim it back. Oh, the Amalei rather was speaking that there was some sort of undefined inconsistency. Oh, the Amalei Reuven hired Shimon to plant But he didn't give him a specific, quantity. He didn't say 6 sacks. He says, the way it's the way it's commonly done, right? Shadoiba, throw in, a proper amount of seeds, whatever it needs. And we all understand that there is a common standard on that. Vasa Sahadi. Turns out he didn't. He shortchanged him. He didn't come along, but they say, he didn't, this is not up to par. He didn't put in as much as he should. So this is a classic case of Ainoah. Does it apply to this case? Karka would be exempt from Ainoah, but is this seed situation considered Karka or not? And this loops us back to the original equation. Yesh lo Ainoah. Regarding these seeds, do we have Ainoah? The command of Shadi v'kadi dami v'yesh lo Ainoah. Is it like material in a container? So you didn't give me enough. You shortchanged me. There's Ainoah. Oidim or batalu l'gabe karka. It's part of the ground, and there's no Ainoah. Third application would be regarding Shavuot. We know that you'd only make Shavuot on metalfin. You don't make a Shavuot in response to a claim on karka. Nishboin alein. Do you make a Shavuot regarding these seeds? Or not? So if there's some sort of a claim and whatever, right? Again, the question is, kedeshadi b'kadi dama ukumetalfin dama. Are these considered like in a container and they're like metalfin, and therefore they're subject to the Shvuah system, or perhaps not. They've been planted in the ground, they're part of the landscape, they're part of the karka, treated like land, and there's no Shvuah on land claims. Take it, we'll let it stand. Here comes an interesting shayla. He discovered some wheat kernels in the glali bakar, in the waste of the animal, of the bakar, of the cow, whatever. And so Aaron, he discovered some barley kernels on the deposits of the behema. Mao, what is their status? Now regarding what? Lamai, with respect to what? Are you asking whether they're considered, still have a status of food regarding being susceptible to tumah that relates to food? Tanina. We already had a discussion about that elsewhere. We have a brisa, chitin shiberei bakar. If you find wheat in the waste of an animal, and likewise barley, so earn shibgol behema. Well, it depends. Chishav alein lachi decided that he's going to use them for food. That's not enough to grant them food status, which they already lost, while the animal consumed them. Ein metami tumaseichel. They're not subject to tumaseichel, because he merely, mentally designated them. That's not enough to change their status. But lokta lachi, they picked them out for the sake of eating them. That affects a status change. That restores their food status. Because we know that when you do an act, a masa, which pronounces the status of the item, that gives it status, more than just mental designation. So regarding Tumas Eichlin, we have a simple formula. What's the question? El Menachos. Rather, the question is, can you use this material for mincha? Well, obviously not. It's unbecoming. It's disgusting. Pshita, of course not. Deloy. Hakrivei no lepachasecha, says the pasuk. Would you dare offer this to your mayor as a gift? Hayir would he favor you on this? Of course not. You don't do this to Hashem chas v'shem. Leitzricha must be that you're asking as follows. He picked them out, but he replanted them. And now we have new crop. And the question is, could I use it? He wishes to use the new crop for mincha. Mai. Can you or not? Is the issue because it's disgusting? Well, once it's replanted and regrown, it's a new entity. The mios disappears, and we don't have to reckon with that issue. Or you can say that when you discover these kernels in this situation, it really is not up to par in terms of its quality. Rashi says, once it was digested, shuv ein megadlin chitin malayin ubriin kidmikara can no longer, it no longer has the ability to produce proper high quality, grain. Vashnami chusha, it still retains that weakness. Even second generation still is affected. It's in the DNA. Teku, so we leave it unresolved. A new question. Pil shebala. Okay, the elephant swallowed a full basket made of reeds, made of that type of material. Fifa mitzvahs made of netzarim, reeds, branches. V'kia derech beis harei, and it let go it, discharged it as waste. And you still have a full basket here, but it's been through the system. What is the basket's status? Regarding what? The question is, does it lose its susceptibility to tumah? Is it no longer considered a kli? Because it went through the digestive system of the elephant, tanina? So actually, we have a Mishnah about that, and it says that it's still going to be a kli. It doesn't lose its status. Kol ha-kelim, all types of utensils. Yordin lidei tumas machshava. It could descend into tumah, means it can attain susceptibility to tumah b'machshava by merely designating it. So you have some sort of material. You say, okay, this is its final stage. This is considered for me a final product. It is now open to tumah. But ve'ein oidlin v'tumas, and once it achieves that status of tumah, of susceptibility to tumah, it doesn't lose it. Ela b'shini ma'isa, unless there's an actual drastic change, like breakage or something. But here we have a kli intact. Nothing happened to it in a visible sense. So certainly it still has its tumah status. It must be speaking that you're asking as follows: the bala hutzin bavdinu kfifa mitzvahs. The animal swallowed raw material, branches, and somehow inside it convoluted and turned into like a basket. So the question is it considered a kli with respect to tumah? Shall we say miyava equal? That the branches, while in the system, are considered digested materials, no longer retain their wood classification. Clay, galalim. It's like utensils manufactured from animal waste, which are not considered kalim for tumah. Adama, like earth kalim. They're not makabel tumah. Adama, as we learned, clay avanim, clay galalim, clay adama, are not ma'im makabel tumah. Loi midivrei Torah, not based on the Chumash. Loi midivrei Torah, not based on the Rabbanon. That's one way to look at it. Or you can say loi equal. No, wood material is resistant to the effect of digestion, and therefore it's a perfectly fine basket made of perfectly fine wood. Says the Gemara, well, actually we will find this as well in the Torah. Everything you can find the source. Why can't you clarify this point based on the following halacha? There was a story similar to this. Two wolves swallowed. Unfortunately, they swallowed two children, two babies, in this place and they discharged the flesh and the bones of the victims. And the question was, what was the status of these materials? The question was posed to the Chachamim. On the one hand, they said that the basar that was discharged by the wolves are tahar because they've been digested and no longer regarded as true basar, not considered basar of maize, not metame. But when it comes to the atzamas, the bones, they still retain their tumah. So the fact that they will matar the basar indicates that the digestive system has a halachic effect on the item, and it no longer is considered the original item. Well, you can't compare basar flesh, which is softer than wood materials. Shani basar derachach. Basar is very different than your branches because it's soft, so it's affected by the system, but not the branches. Says the one, actually, come to think of it, why can't we go to the second part of that halacha there and prove otherwise? For liv sheit miseh, why don't you clarify from the next part where it says v'timus atzamayis? They regarded the bones as tamei. Apparently, when you're tough, like a bone, you retain your status despite having gone through the digestive system. Same with the wood materials of the basket. No, you can't prove anything from bones because they're on the other side of the extreme side of the spectrum. They're very tough and hard and resistant. So you can't really prove anything from there. So again, basar that went through the system is tar. Atzamayis are not. Well, the nitzarim, these hutzin, these little branches or whatever, that remains to be resolved. Boyer Abzeri comes in a real interesting shaila. Chitin shiyor de ba'avim. Okay, so wheat arrives with the rain. Rashi says it came through with the rain. How did it get to the rain? How did it get to the clouds? Is when the clouds sucked out, the moisture out of the ocean. Unfortunate ship laden with wheat got caught up in this twister, And it ended up there, and sure enough, your backyard is raining cats and dogs, raining wheat. Mao, what's the status of this wheat? Says the Gemara. Lamai, regarding what? What do you want to use it for? Menachos, you want to use it for a mincha? Amayla, what's wrong with it? It's perfectly fine wheat. Ela shtei alechem, you want to use it for shtei alechem on Shavuos. Mai, can you or not? Now the pasuk says Moshe Seichem Amar Rachman. The pasuk specified it has to come from local Eretz Yisrael wheat. Lafoka dechutz la'aretz loy, as opposed to outside Eretz Yisrael. Abel da'avim shaper dami. But if it's coming off the clouds, it's local wheat, happens to be transported by the clouds. That's okay. Or then what you can say? No, Moshe Seichem dafka, it has to come in local, locally supplied. But filo da'avim nami lo, you can't come from the clouds. Now, Taisus asks, I mean, what's the problem? If you know that it came locally, who cares how it was transported, whether by boat, train, tram, if it's Yisrael wheat? So that's why Taisus learns differently. He says, actually, we're speaking that it was a miraculous phenomenon. It just rained down al yedei nes. We find a similar Gemara in Sanhedrin when meat came down. So this was miraculously produced wheat. And the question is, can you use it for shtei alechem? Apparently for Menachos it's okay, but shtei alechem, which requires moish v'yiseichem, has to be locally grown, perhaps this doesn't qualify. Says the Gemara, have you ever heard of such a phenomenon? Yeah. We know one time in history that it rained down wheat. Kada Adi, that was his name, Adi, Taya was Arab. Nechisa le rum. Suddenly he has this pile, this layer of wheat. Rum kizva. Kizva is a tefach high layer of wheat, 4 inches of wheat tomorrow in Toronto. Rum kizva dechiti, but lots of parsi throughout an area of 3 parses. He had a huge shipment of wheat, which came down in a very unusual manner. Boy Reb Shimon Pasi becomes a new shaila. So we know that the bringing of the omer permits further consumption of the new grain crop, right? What about shiboilas? Shevia shlish. So this stalk, this wheat, has grown 1/3 of its total growth, which Rashi says is considered, Gemar pri. It's considered like a pri. It has the status of a grain once it achieves that level of growth. So it's considered like grain, and it can relate to the omer, and can get the benefit and get the heter for further consumption. And that happened before the omer, before Pesach. Shevia shlish kaim omer. Then, va'akra, he pulled it out of the ground. Okay, a full stalk. V'shasla, and then the omer was offered, and then he replanted it. He decided he wants it to grow a little more. V'shasla lachar omer. V'yisifan, it grew more. It developed a full, pack of grain. So, interestingly, in this stalk, in these grain, you have it's a split identity. You have part of it which has been mutter, and now the rest, which grew later, belongs to the next year's crop. So that does not have the heter of the omer. So you have this sort of ongoing conflict within the grain. Part of it is mutter, part of it is asr. Which one do you follow? The original or the additional? Vayisifa added more. What's the status? Plus ikras, then do we focus on the original part? B'shari omer, the omer was matter that. So the whole thing is mutter. It's the ikra that counts. That's considered the primary element of oidilon basat tisavazlin. Or do you say no? The fact is, it grew more, and it grew more after the omer, and you can't eat it. What's the tisavazlin? We follow the sefes. V'ad she'av omer haba, and you have to wait until next year's omer. Well, perhaps we can clarify this based on halacha of Rabbi Yochanan, who deals with a similar case where you have this sort of joint entity, original being asur, the addition being mutter, and he says you look at the original part. So we have a shaila regarding erla. Says Rabbi Yochanan, you have a young sapling, young tree, which is considered erla. So the fruit on that tree, they're little teeny mini fruit that have just begun to grow, and they're arla. Shesivcha, he attached the young tree, biskena, to an older tree. They grafted the trees. The older tree is way past arla, no issues. Uba pears, in the yaldan, the small tree, you have pears growing. And now, after you grafted it, you attached it to the old tree, it's growing and blossoming like amazing. Afilu hoisif masayim, even if the new growth outnumbers the original growth by a number of 200 to 1. So originally you had a little teeny banana, and now it's not banana, a little teeny apple. and now it's huge, humongous. Right? 200 times as much, which typically is the formula you use to be Mabatal Arla. That makes Bittul on Arla. No, in this case you would think it's okay, because look, the substantial additional growth of Heter should nullify the original teeny weeny apple, and there, Asr, it's Asr. Right? I feel Haisim Asayim Asr, even if it's 200 times as much, it's Asr. Apparently, the Ikar is what carries the day. And likewise, we have another halach regarding Kalayim, Batzal, you have an onion which doesn't belong, has no business being planted in a vineyard, that's Kalayim. Sheshas Lebekar, planted in a vineyard. Nekar Kerman, a little while later they uprooted, destroyed the vineyard. So we have a little bit that's a problem, because it grew together with the, but post-destruction, whatever comes along is mutter now. It's no longer a kalayim. I feel like Masayim Asr, even, again, if it's 200 times as much as the original, it's Asr. So you see that the Ikar is what carries the day, because there's an Ikar in there, that's Asr. So perhaps the same regarding the Aymar. If the Ikar was mutter, Tisefes is now subjugated to the Ikar, it's mutter. Well, says the word, Higufa coming boiling. His question actually did relate to these halachas. He wasn't sure whether Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yona's son, who seemed to allow the Ikar to determine the facts, determine the halacha, was it because they actually believed that the Ikar is what determines, or perhaps we're not sure and we go to Chumrah. So in those cases, it was a Chumrah to go with the Ikar. The Ikar is Arla, the Ikar is Kalayim. But in a case where if you would follow the Ikar, it would actually provide a leniency, such as in the case of the Aymer, where the Ikar is the mutter and the addition is the Asr, perhaps you wouldn't take it that far. The Rabban is certain the Basar Ikar, then we always go to Ikar. Whether it generates a leniency, such as following the Ikar of the by the Aymer, which is mutter, or if it creates a Chumrah, like the case of the Kalayim and the Arla, or perhaps they're not sure which way to go. The Chumrah, we only apply it L'Chumrah. But in our case, we're looking at the Ikar as the focal point is going to generate a Kula, the Kula Lem. We don't say it, Lem, we don't take it that far. Take it, we leave it unresolved. Okay, let's do a quick Chazara. We spoke about the beginning of the growth process of the fruit tree. At what point is it considered far enough in the process to be related to this year's Shtei Alechem? We spoke about the leaf, budding and growing. We're not sure about that. Wheat planted in the ground, pre-rooting, is it still considered wheat regarding all kinds of halachas, or is it part of the ground? And as a din of karka, we discussed the kernels discovered in the waste material of the animal, whether if it's replanted, the new crop, is it roy for mincha, or is it poor quality and not suitable? We spoke about the elephant with the basket. We spoke about the miraculous wheat, whether you can use it for the Shtei Alechem, and whether you look at the Ikar or Tisefes regarding all kinds of halachas, Aymer, Kalayim, and Arla. All the best to you, Natzlach.